Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Welcome to the Warlord Strategist. So, Commander, let me ask you this. Do you want to win a battle or control how the war ends? Welcome to the Warpath. Welcome to the first official lesson in our campaign, or series The Master the Art of War. The only series built to forge your mind into a weapon, whether you're a writer, a strategist, a game maker, or a world builder of empires soaked in fire. In the last video, we laid the foundation. We told you what this series is about, what you're going to learn, and what it will turn you into. We talked about phases, battle doctrines, psychological warfare, legendary generals, simulations, all of it. And now, the real training begins. Today's topic, the first strike of many, is one of the most misunderstood foundations in all of warfare. Strategy versus tactics. This is the difference between surviving the battlefield and mastering it. Most people, even the loudest ones, don't know the difference. They say tactics when they mean strategy. They plan a siege without understanding what they're fighting for. But here in this war room, you will not be most people. A tactician wins the clash. A strategist wins the campaign. One plays the game. The other writes the rules. So, Commander, why does this lesson matter? Because knowing the difference between tactics and strategy is the beginning of real power. Because this is where you stop reacting and start commanding. Because today, you don't just learn to fight, you learn to lead. All right, Commander. Now that the war horns have sounded, let's get to the bones of the matter. What exactly is strategy? And what makes it different from tactics? The distinction isn't just academic, it's the difference between a ruler and a pawn on someone else's board. Strategy is your grand design, the long-term vision of the war. It's the question of why you fight and how you plan to win in the end. It spans weeks, months, sometimes years. It answers, what is the enemy's weakness? How do we break their supply lines? How do we make their people lose faith before the sword even swings? Think of strategy like a general sitting atop a mountain, seeing every front, every road, every consequence. It's war-level thinking, where terrain, morale, politics, and future consequences all converge. And what about tactics? Well, tactics, on the other hand, are your boots in the mud. It's the sword stroke in the fog, the decision you make when your cavalry meets their flank, or when your archers need to fall back under fire. Tactics answer, how do we win this battle? Right now, what formation do we use? Who do we send in first? When do we retreat? And when do we crush their center? Tactics are situational. They're dirty. They live and die by terrain, timing, and quick decisions. Strategy shapes the war. Tactics win the field. To put it simply, Commander, strategy is the plan to win the war. Tactics are the actions that win the battle. Commander, now that you know the line between strategy and tactics, it's time to walk both paths at once. To lead, you must think like a war god in the sky and strike like a blade in the mud. First, the high fire, the strategies. These are the long-range visions that shape entire campaigns. Attrition strategy, wear them down, bleed their numbers, break their will. War becomes erosion. Annihilation strategy, no mercy, no escape. One blow to end them all. Guerrilla strategy, strike from shadow, retreat to silence. Win by ghosts and time. Divide and conquer. Break their unity. Split the herd and hunt them down one by one. Shock and awe. Crush them with terror and power, so fast they forget how to fight. Strategic defense. Hold the line. Bleed the beast. Then counterstrike like thunder. Economic warfare. Cut their veins. No gold, no grain, no war. Psychological warfare. Make them fear you more than death itself. Now, the battlefield craft, the tactics. These are your moves in the dirt, your whispers in the wind. Flanking maneuver. Hit their soft spots, sides they forgot to guard. Ambush. Wait in silence. Then strike like hell. Feigned retreat. Lure them forward with cowardice. Then crush them with fury. Encirclement. No exits. Just blades on every side. Pincer movement. Close the trap with 2 fists at once. Skirmishing. Bite, run, and bleed them over time. Siege warfare. Surround, starve. Shatter. Hit and run. Slash, vanish, repeat. Let frustration kill them. Shock attack. Hit hard. Hit first. Let fear do the rest. Infiltration. Send shadows through their ranks. Break them from within. Strategy wins the war. Tactics win the battle. But the true commander wins both at once. Now let's deep down in the history and learn from great commander. Strategy of annihilation. Napoleon's Ulm campaign. Napoleon Bonaparte in 1805. The Ulm campaign. He didn't seek a drawn-out war. He aimed to obliterate the Austrian army before they could even fight properly. He bypassed traditional lines, moved with terrifying speed, and enveloped the Austrians at Ulm without a major battle. He cut them off from reinforcements, starved them, and forced surrender. No great siege, no bloodbath, just precise annihilation. A checkmate crafted through roads, rivers, and readiness. Lesson: win before the fight begins. Psychological and strategic encirclement. Saladin at the horns of Hattin. Then there was Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria, who wielded strategy like a blade at the Battle of Hattin. In July of 1187, he lured the Crusader forces away from water under blistering sun. When they were parched, disorganized, and desperate, he struck, surrounding and crushing them. The true cross was captured. Jerusalem fell soon after. He didn't just beat them with steel, he used thirst, timing, and terrain as his generals. Lesson: let nature and pride do your bleeding before your blades. Mobile strike strategy at Yarmouk. Khalid al-Walid. Khalid, the sword of Allah, forged brilliance at the Battle of Yarmouk. Outnumbered by a massive Byzantine force, he didn't retreat. He divided his cavalry and used sandstorms and terrain to create chaos. With rapid redeployments and shock maneuvers, he neutralized the Byzantine cavalry advantage and routed the empire's eastern army. One of the greatest examples of mobility as strategy. Lesson: speed and chaos are sometimes your sharpest weapons. Defensive kill zone strategy. Edward III at Crécy. Edward III of England faced overwhelming French numbers at the Battle of Crécy, but he didn't break. He built a trap, using a slight slope, muddy terrain, and rows of longbowmen. He created a battlefield kill zone. The French cavalry charged again and again, and were slaughtered by arrows and discipline. Lesson: sometimes the best move is to make them die walking toward you. Feigned retreat and multi-front strategy. Genghis Khan. And then, Genghis Khan, the master of the feigned retreat and coordinated horror. During his conquests across Central Asia and into Persia, he would divide his armies across vast distances, only to converge at the perfect moment. One force would flee, drawing the enemy in, while others struck their flanks, cities, or supplies. He didn't fight fair. He fought to dominate minds as much as maps. Lesson: the best strategy is the one they can't even see coming. So, Commander, you've seen what true strategy looks like. Vision backed by timing. discipline guided by fire. That's how wars are won. But strategy means nothing if your tactics crack under pressure. Now, witness the moves that shattered empires or carved their names into history. Alexander the Great, oblique phalanx at Gaugamela, 331 BC. For example, Alexander the Great at the Battle of Gaugamela, facing the massive Persian army under Darius III, vastly outnumbered. But Alexander didn't charge head-on like a fool. No, he used an oblique formation. He angled his phalanx to the right, drawing the Persians off balance. Then, at the perfect moment, he pierced through their weakened center with his elite companion cavalry, striking Darius directly, a maneuver that shattered the largest empire on Earth. Lesson: outnumbered means nothing if you control the geometry of war. Hannibal, double envelopment at Cannae, 216 BC. Hannibal Barca, the demon of Carthage, wrote a masterclass at Cannae. He let the Romans think they were winning. His center collapsed, on purpose. While the Romans pushed deeper, his cavalry swept the flanks, and his reserves surged forward. The Romans found themselves surrounded, crushed from all sides in the bloodiest ambush of antiquity. Lesson: your weakness can be your trap. William the Conqueror, feigned retreat at Hastings, 1066 AD. In 1066, William of Normandy faced Saxon shield walls at Hastings. Unbreakable until his men pretended to break. They retreated in panic, but it was a lie. When the Saxons chased, William's cavalry wheeled and tore them down in the open. It wasn't muscle that won, it was manipulation. Lesson: the mind is a battlefield. Break it, and the body follows. Subutai, coordinated ambushes across rivers, 1241 AD. In 1241, Subutai, the Mongol ghost general, struck Europe like thunder. At the Battle of Sarjo River, he lured the Hungarian army into a bridge trap. As the Hungarians crossed, he smashed them with pre-set archers, cavalry, and flaming chaos. Days later, he repeated the dance at Mohi, erasing the kingdom's defenders in less than a week. Lesson: one mind controlling 10 armies can destroy a nation in days. Richard the Lionheart, skirmishing and discipline at Arsuf, 1191 AD. During the Third Crusade, Richard I was harassed for miles by Saladin's cavalry. But he held his men back. No charge, no rage, just discipline. Only when the Saracens were stretched, thin and overconfident, did Richard unleash his knights in one clean wave. Controlled fury crushed the Muslim flank and held the road to Jaffa. Lesson: sometimes the deadliest tactic is patience under fire. But even the greatest commanders have bled from their own missteps. Hubris, arrogance, blind ambition. These are the lessons written in failure. Learn them well, commander, or join the list of those who didn't. The snow-covered grave. Napoleon's invasion of Russia. Napoleon believed Moscow would fall like every city before it. He marched in with over 600,000 men, proud, cold, and unprepared. But Russia fought with ice, with scorched earth, with starvation. When winter came, Napoleon had no roads, no food, no fire, only frozen death and empty victories. Lesson: the greatest strategist still needs to feed his army, and winter never retreats. Overreach on two fronts. Hitler's Operation Barbarossa. Fueled by pride and hate, Hitler opened the Eastern Front against Stalin, while still bleeding in the West. He split his army 3 ways, thinking the Soviet bear would fall fast. But the Russians endured, regrouped, and countered. By winter, Germany had awakened an enemy it couldn't kill. Lesson: you never invade Russia in winter, unless you want history to forget your victories. like strategy. There was also some failed tactic in the history, like the desert trap, Crassus at Carrhae. Crassus wanted glory, so he charged into Parthian sand with heavy infantry and Roman arrogance. The Parthians answered with horse archers, endless arrows, and silence. The legions were too slow. They couldn't see. They couldn't fight. They were swallowed whole. Lesson: discipline is not enough. When your enemy dances around you, you don't hold. You die. French Knights. Charles d'Albret at Agincourt. Iron in the mud, 1415. The French had numbers, they had armor, and they had rage.
But they charged through mud, funneled into a death corridor. The English longbow rained down, and those proud knights sank, not just in earth, but in history's shame.
But you were not forged to fall like them. Here, in the war room, we dissect their mistakes. We carve their failure into your spine, so you never repeat it. This course will teach you not just to plan, but to predict. Not just to fight, but to dominate. Stay sharp, Commander. We're just getting started. So, Commander, now you know the difference. Strategy is the war. Tactics are the battle. One bends the course of history. The other decides who lives through the day. And you've just taken the first step from spectator to warlord. But don't you dare stop here. This was just the opening volley. In the next lesson, we go deeper. We begin to build your battlefield mind. We'll break down terrain, morale, force, the 5 elements every commander must command. So if this stirred your blood, if you felt the fire rise in your chest, then prove it. Strike the like. Swear loyalty with a subscribe. And sound off in the comments. Commander, what kind of war are you here to master? Because this isn't just a channel. This is a war room. This is Warlord Strategist. And you're no mere viewer. You're training to be the one who wins before the first sword is drawn. See you in the next campaign.